Hello, everyone. Today we'll talk about Chapter 3, Part B. Last time we talked about how to organize a project using the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is easy to use, but when we have a large project with lots of activities, then we need to use something else. So we'll use the critical path method, the CPM, and the program evaluation and review technique. PERT. What's the difference between CPM and PERT? The main difference is the way we measure the duration of each activity. In CPM, we'll use a single number to measure the duration of each activity. For example, the activity lay foundation is done in 2 months. So the duration of this activity is exactly 2 months. We'll use a single number to describe the duration of this activity. On the other hand, in PERT, we're using 3 numbers to describe the duration of each activity: the longest possible duration, the shortest possible duration, and the most likely duration. For example, we can say that activity lay foundation will be done in 3 months in the worst scenario. So this is the longest possible duration. And 1 month in the best scenario. This is the shortest possible duration. Or 2 months most likely. This is the most likely duration. So in this part, we're going to talk about the critical path method, and we'll talk about how to compute the duration of the entire project using the critical path method. Let's take an example. Consider the following project. The goal is to compute the duration of the whole project. In this example, we want to build a house, and there are 7 activities that need to be completed. And our goal is to find the duration of the whole project. The first thing we need to do is draw the activity on node network. Or the activity on node network is a graphical representation of a project. And we're going to use circles for the activities. And we're going to draw arrows to indicate which activity should be done first and which activity should be done next. So if there is an arrow from 1 to 2, that means 1 needs to be completed before we can start working on 2. So let's start with, let's draw the activity on node network of this example. So let's start with the start node. Start. And what is the first activity we can start working on? That's the one without any predecessors. So activity A. And the duration of this is 3. A takes 3 months to finish this. Now, after we finish A, what activities can we start working on? B and C. So B takes 2 months. C takes 1 month. And after we finish B and C, we can start working on D. So there's D. The duration is 3 months. And to start D, we have to wait until B is done. So let's draw an arrow from B to D. And we also need to wait until C is done. So let's draw another arrow from C to D. Now, after B, we can also start working on E. So E is here. Duration is 1. And we can start E after B. Now, after E, we can start working on F. The duration is 1 month. And then after D and F, you can start working on G. The duration is 1 month. And there's an arrow from D to G. And we also wait for F to be finished. So now we are done. We covered all the activities. Now we're gonna draw the end node or the finish node. And let's look at the last activity. Which one is the last activity? G, right? So we're gonna draw an arrow from the last activity to the end node. Now the next question is, find the duration of the whole project. Should it add up all, what's the duration of the whole project? Should it add up all the durations for all the activities? But some of the activities can be done simultaneously. For example, after finishing A, we can work on B and C at the same time. And since B takes 2 months, it takes longer than C, we don't need to add the duration of C. We can finish C while we are working on B, right? So we don't need to add this. So should we add the duration of A? Yes, 3 months. Should we add the duration of B? Yes, 2 months. How about the duration of C? No, we don't need to add this because we can finish this while we're working on this, right? Now let's go to D. Should we add the duration of D? Yes. How about the duration of E, right? So let's look at this. Right? After we finish B, we can start working on D, right? But at the same time, we can start working on E and F. So, and D takes 3 months to finish. E and F take 2 months to finish. So we can finish E and F while we are finishing D. So should we add the duration of E and F? No. Okay. Now how about G? Should we add the duration of G? Yes. So it's going to be 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1, which is 9 months. So in this example, the duration of this project was the sum of the duration of A, the duration of B, the duration of D, and the duration of G. And this was the sequence from the start node to the finish node. A, B, D, G was a sequence from the start node to the finish node. And in fact, there are other sequences from the start node to the finish node. There can be this path or this path. But it looks like A, B, D, G was the longest sequence from the start node to the finish node. Why? Because if you compare this to this, if you compare this and this, which one is longer? This one is longer. We chose this one, right? And if you compare this, clear page. If you compare this and this, which one was longer? This one was longer, and we chose this one, right? So in fact, this path turns out to be the longest path from the start node to the finish node. So in this example, the duration of the whole project was the longest path from the start node to the finish node. So we can have the following question. Does it happen all the time? In every project, is the duration of the project the longest path from the start node to the finish node? In fact, the answer is yes, right? It turns out that the duration of the entire project is always the duration of the longest path from the start node to the finish node. And what we call this longest path, we call this the critical path. Critical path because, and we call these activities on the critical path the critical activities. A, B, D, G are the critical activities, Why do we call these the critical activities? Because if we delay any of these, then the entire project will be delayed. So let's summarize what we discussed so far. So we'll have to think of all the sequences of activities from the start to the finish node, right? There's one path, another path, and compute the duration of each path, 8 months, 9 months, and 8 months, and select the longest path. That's the duration of the entire project. So the duration of the project is 9 months. So in general, think of all the sequences of activities between the start node to the finish node, compute the length of each sequence, and pick the longest sequence. And that's the duration of the entire project. And the longest sequence is called the critical path, and all the activities on the critical path are critical activities. So this is everything in this part, and I'll see you next time.